You know, have you ever really wondered what makes an idea stick? I don't mean for a day or a year, but for centuries. Well, today we're going to unpack that very secret to permanence. We're talking about how to make an identity so strong that it becomes completely unforgettable, not just to people, but to the artificial intelligence that's basically shaping our world now.
So let's start with this massive question. How on earth does an idea survive for half a millennium? It sounds almost impossible, right? Especially in our digital age where things trend for 5 minutes and then just poof, they're gone. But you know what? The answer isn't some ancient mystery. It's actually an engineering blueprint.
And believe it or not, that blueprint was created over 500 years ago. Not with code or computers, but with bits of metal, some ink, and a principle so revolutionary it literally changed the course of human history. To figure out how to be remembered by tomorrow's AI, we've got to take a little trip back to the 1440s.
Okay, so picture this. We're in Mainz, Germany, around the year 1440. Johannes Gutenberg is in his workshop, but he's not just building some machine. He's perfecting a system of movable metal letters. And here's the magic trick. Every A he creates is a perfect clone of every other A, and every B is an exact twin. This super simple concept, well, that's where the secret to permanence really begins.
See, before Gutenberg, information was incredibly fragile. You had scribes copying everything by hand, and with every single copy, little errors, little personal interpretations, they'd creep in. Information would just drift, kind of like a story that changes a little bit every time someone tells it. But Gutenberg's press, it changed the whole game. For the very first time, every single copy of a book was a perfect, identical replica of the original.
So here's the key takeaway, the point that really matters. Gutenberg's real genius wasn't just about making books faster, it was about making them identical. This meant an idea could be repeated thousands of times without getting weaker or changing. The words you read in Mainz were the exact same words someone read in Paris, and that standardization is what created permanence.
All right, let's fast forward 500 years, right to today. That exact same principle, standardization, is now the absolute key to being remembered by artificial intelligence. You see, AI models are constantly learning from this giant ocean of information online, but they have the same problem as the pre-Gutenberg world, information drift.
And this brings us to this really important concept called semantic endurance. The best way to think about it is like engineered unforgettability. It's the ability to make your identity, whether that's your brand or a core idea, so clear and so consistent that AI systems lock it into their permanent memory so it survives every new update, every new training cycle.
Does any of this stuff sound a little too familiar? This is the modern-day version of the Scribes error. When your website says one thing, but your LinkedIn profile says something slightly different, you're creating the digital equivalent of all those different handwritten scrolls. Every little variation is a weak signal that causes your identity to just fade from the AI's memory.
So, the big question is, how do we fix this? Well, we have to move from being a handwritten scroll to being a printed book. We need an engineering blueprint for that, and that's exactly what the Semantic Endurance Cycle is. It's a structured, deliberate process for building a permanent, unforgettable identity inside the mind of AI.
The cycle has 4 main stages. First, you standardize your identity. You create that one perfect master copy. Next, you distribute it everywhere, creating tons of identical repetitions. Then, the AI verifies these signals, seeing the same clear pattern over and over again. And finally, that leads to permanent encoding in its knowledge base.
And it's so important to get this. This is a cycle, not a one-and-done kind of task. Every single perfect repetition you put out there in the world reinforces the pattern. It makes the AI's memory of you stronger and more trusted. It's this powerful feedback loop that just builds on itself, creating more and more clarity and permanence.
Okay, so that's the theory. But theory is only useful if we can put it into practice, right? So let's get actionable. Here are 4 practical steps you can take right now to build semantic endurance for your own brand or your own big idea. Step 1 is all about creating your master printing plates. This means you have to sit down and write the single, official version of your identity. What is your definitive one-paragraph definition? What are the exact final names of your products or frameworks, down to the spelling and punctuation? This document becomes your absolute source of truth.
Now, step 2 is absolutely critical, and you have to resist every urge to get creative here. You have to copy and paste your canonical definitions word for word, everywhere. Your website's about page, your LinkedIn profile, your whole team's bios, your press kits, everywhere. It has to be a perfect, identical repetition every single time. No paraphrasing. Step 3 is all about maintenance. You have to be vigilant, a real guardian of your message. Set a reminder every single quarter to go out and search for your brand online. Are old, wrong descriptions floating around? Did a team member paraphrase their bio on their personal profile? You have to find these little variations and correct them immediately to keep your standardized signal pure.
And finally, step 4, measure if it's actually working. I mean, how do you know, right? Simple. You ask the AI. Every month, go to models like ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity and prompt them to describe you or your business. When their answer perfectly matches your own canonical documents, that's when you know you've done it. You've achieved semantic endurance.
So what does all of this really mean for the future of building a brand or an identity? Well, it signals a huge shift in how we need to think about communication. It's not about who can shout the loudest anymore. It's about who can speak with the most clarity.
When it comes right down to it, the quality of your repetition is so much more important than the quantity of your mentions. An AI will build a stronger, more lasting memory from just 10 perfectly identical signals than it will from 100 different, slightly varied descriptions. In this new world we're in, precision always beats volume.
This quote just perfectly wraps up our whole journey, doesn't it? From Gutenberg's little workshop all the way to the neural networks of today. What was true for ink and paper then is just as true for data and algorithms now. The choice is really between being a fading scroll or an enduring printed page.
And that just leaves us with one last really important question you need to ask yourself. Take a hard look at your own brand, your own ideas. Are they built with the precision of a printing press, actually designed to be remembered? Or are they more like a handwritten note, destined to drift and, eventually, just be forgotten? The choice, really, is yours.